Warm greetings everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as Citizens Collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. The conversation today is on the Riverscape Series and the session is titled Ahmedabad Riverfront, the Decisions, Design, Development and Thereafter. Before we get into the session, a quick overview of what we have been doing at Wednesdays for Water. The objective of Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversation with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions they are working upon or seeking for. Since Wednesdays for Water became such a successful event and we had more invitations and suggestions coming from, we have expanded Wednesdays for Water to go further into Friday Water Stockies, Water Arts, Water Thesis Club, Water Reading Club, which happens on Fridays. Then we have Monday Munching and Musing with Women for Water, where we appreciate and acknowledge women in the water sector. These are all online sessions. In addition, and in competition or complementing, we also organize on-site water workshops, water walks and talks, seminars, special courses, festivals, conference panels to continue the water conversation in various possible ways. In here at W4W, we strongly believe water conversation is crucial for water conservation. Do visit our website www.w4w.in for more details. Every session held together is put there at one place. Over 400 sessions with 600 speakers spoken on our platform. We now are the longest water conversation ever taken place anywhere in the world. This is Mansi Bhargav from the house of W4W, and I invite all of you with deep gratitude to our previous speakers, our participants, over 10,000 of them who have attended so far, and my core team who have really made it possible. Now coming to the today's session, we are going to discuss part of the Riverscape series, and last three sessions we have been talking about riverfront. Earlier we were talking about heritage, we were talking about ecosystem. Now we are focusing since September on riverfronts. We have already discussed Pune Riverfront, Baroda Riverfront, and now we have today Ahmedabad Riverfront. Next week we are actually going to discuss Jammu and Kashmir, Jammu Riverfront. So today I invite Niki Shah and Kavan Pathak as our speakers for the day, and we have Parth Patel as discussant of the session. Thank you so much both of you for agreeing to do this session, and thanks dear Parth, and welcome back to W4W because you have been a fellow at W4W when it started. So before I invite Niki and Kavan, let me just give a brief overview of their very elaborative professional background, and I'll put the information also in the chat box for people to refer to it later on. Niki Shah is an architect and urban designer with over 23 years of experience. He is currently serving as director at HCP Design, Planning and Management Pvt. Limited. He has worked extensively across architecture, urban design, landscape and urban planning. He holds a Bachelor of Architecture from MS University Baroda and with a MB Dave Gold Medal and an MSc from Urbanism with cum laude from TU Delft with HSP Huygens Scholarship. At HCP, Niki leads the Urbanism Studio and mentors the multidisciplinary team of architects, planners, urban designers, and landscape architects. He is known for a sharp design sensibility and a deep understanding of urban development issues. He provides strategic direction to projects, and his contribution spans waterfronts, public realm development, street design, local area planning, TOD strategies, form-based regulations, integrated townships, large-scale master plans, just to sum up a few. He's also engaged in research focusing on morphology of Indian and global cities, street standardization, post-occupancy, studies of urban spaces, and the impact of building regulations on city development. Beyond professional work, he is an avid photographer and traveler, using street and travel photography to enrich his understanding of urban life and to inform ongoing research and design exploration at HCP and CEPT University, Ahmedabad. So I actually watched his photography first before I got to know that he is actually at HCP. So thank you so much, Niki. Because you both are going to present together, I will actually also introduce Kavan. Usually we do one speaker at a time, but then you can have a flow of your presentation.
Yes.
Kavan K. Pathak is a senior urban designer and architect. He is a resourceful and motivated urban professional with a background in urban planning and design With over 8 years of demonstrated experience in the industry, his expertise spans the entire urban project lifecycle from concept development and stakeholder engagement to on-ground execution. Kavan has contributed to landmark projects such as Sabarmati Riverfront and its extension, the Gandhi Ashram precinct development, besides multiple street development projects, bringing a strategic and creative approach to urban spaces. He's passionate about crafting vibrant and functional public spaces, and thus looks forwards to engaging with aspiring architects and urban designers, sharing insights from his journey and exploring innovative approaches to urban development. Thank you so much, both of you. You have a joint presentation to make, and please take the screen as yours and make sure that it is working properly. We have already tested. Thanks, both of you, Kavan and Niki, for this wonderful opportunity for us to learn about Ahmedabad Riverfront.
Thank you for the introduction. We'll start our presentation.
Please, yes.
Okay. Okay.
May I also request to have your camera on so that you are in our video later on visible?
Just wanted to make sure that it's visible. I'll switch on that. Okay, can you see the screen now? And I'll start.
Yes, we see the screen, and I see you also now. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Depends on the region you guys are in. I think Parth, I believe, is in some different zone. Thanks for this opportunity. We are going to talk about Sabarmati Riverfront, which is at Ahmedabad, the city in Gujarat, western part of India. Just a relation before I dive into the project details and what we've done for last couple of decades. Just a bit of background of the Sabarmati and Ahmedabad. This is Ahmed Shah, definitely not a picture. It's a portrait done by Amit Ambalal, one of the renowned painter. Ahmedabad established on 1411. There's a foundation stone also in the city, demarcating that. And this is the one of the early paintings. There was a tradition of painting cities like this in 16th, 17th, and 17th centuries. This is by a Dutch traveler. There you can see the walled city and the surrounding. And merely 150 years ago, Ahmedabad was like this, primarily focused on the walled city of Ahmedabad, established by Ahmed Shah, and couple of smaller villages which are there already, and the Sabarmati River in the center, as you can see. And then the 20th century happened and the industrialization happened. So Ahmedabad became the hub of lots of textile mills, and it changed the topography of and the morphology of the city primarily. And then it grew a lot. So it has become one of the largest city in the country, seventh, I guess, largest city in the country as of now. And it has flourished on both sides of the river. And ironically, it's a radial city. The planned city is radial city in a way, and the river sits directly in the middle of it. So it grew equally towards both sides, and the river passes in the center. As you can see in the image here, the urbanized area of the city with the river in the center. Sabarmati, like any river, I would say the city establishes on the river for certain benefits. The Sabarmati always helped Ahmedabad to start. So it was for prime most important source of water, where people used to get the water for various uses. Eventually, the engineering took over, and then they built this trench works to get the water, and they're still functioning. The important people or the rich people built the recreational places also, this is one of the palace which still exists here. It's a gallery for now along the river. Due to the nature of the river, because it was not a perilous river and it was dry in many months, so that whole ground can be used for multi-purpose. So Gandhiji, during his tenure, life at Sabarmati Ashram, also used the riverbed as a gathering place because that's the only place which is easily accessible, I would say. And yes, because of the sandy riverbed, people used that sand as the drying bed for the clothes because of the textile nature of the city. This is a famous picture by French photographer. He was traveling in 60s here and he took a couple of pictures of Ahmedabad there. So beautifully captured river at that time. This is also washing areas. So lots of people used to come and wash the clothes because the water was accessible. Yeah, there are smaller areas where people did local farming also, because this is part of the river. You can see the building behind is NID, National Institute of Design. It's one of the premier design institutes in the city of the country. And of course, because of the free land and available land, dry riverbed, it could possible to build some houses also. So poor people build the houses along the riverbed. And you can see the urbanized area at the back. And that continued for a long period of time till last century, end of last century also. So you have many, many families living on the river. And of course, they needed the market. So this is a flea market, we call it. It's the people's market, Sunday market, which establishes every Sunday for many, many centuries, I would say. So that continued. Gandhiji also built the ashram on the bank of river. Despite of having all the benefits and the characteristics of the history, city never paid any attention to the river. And eventually it became dump for the garbage, stormwater also, which brings the sewage in the river. So it was always dirty, polluted. This is one of the famous bridge, which is linked with the Dandi Yatra, which Gandhiji did for the Salt March. And he started the journey from this bridge, but the below, that's the outfall. And of course, the people who used to live on the river never had any proper services. So all of the sewage directly flows in the river from the houses. There are two ways. In the slum, also the people who used to live were also encroaching on the water flow, and hence the water also going in their houses. And even for the urban planning and the design, there is no particular thought given on how the river or the city looks from the river. And it, in a way, 100% you can say privatized river where individuals' plots were aligning on the river. So these are the kind of background issues which we had for many, many decades. And it was not accessible. Only place where you can have a sense of river, where you can cross the bridge to go from east to west or either way. And by end of 20th century, it was like a back of the house or the backyard of the city. But that's not something which is Ahmedabad. The cities in India also has the similar issues. If you see Pune, Pune also did a lot of work, but it never accomplished something which is comprehensive, and it kind of, there were adverse effect on that. It polluted the river constantly. So this is the state. We are also working on this. So this is a picture taken by us a long time ago. Vadodara also has the similar issues. You can see polluted river, small river, but polluted, passing in the middle of the town. Surat, again, one of the larger river, also has the same issue. Nagpur. So if you see, all the cities has a similar problem, and one or two additions or solutions might have happened in various cities, but they are not comprehensive. So never actually solved any problem for this. And we have always complained about it. Even the important place like Varanasi is, the river is always difficult to manage. Now, this particular series of pictures I'm showing because this is an urbanized area. So we are looking at the urbanized cities and the cities with millions of people living in it. So when you see on contrast how people have done the cities and the waterfront, and this is a aspired waterfronts we go to look at it and roam around. This is Paris, waterfront, beautiful promenades, and then the landscapes and all sorts of stuff. London also, New York, entire waterfront throughout. So waterfront and urbanized coexisting. It also has a beautiful promenades and many parks and gardens. Sydney, Singapore, Shanghai with the Bund and the super skyline, and our own Mumbai also. But the waterfronts did not always exist. So the infrastructure was built, rivers were cleaned, and riverfronts were developed as a meaningful public spaces. So nothing was given, and we worked comprehensively as a city, as a river in the world, and then they managed to build up to here, which took many, many years. This is a general situation, not only in India. In the same London, if you talk about England, had the similar problem with the industrialization in last century, and you can see pollution, industries abutting the river and polluting the river. This is Manchester, again, similar issues. London, again, in 18th century, with important buildings directly abutting the river, but nothing on the river. And this is left side, you can see Somerset House. It's a government house, directly accessed by the river. And at one point in 19th century, early 19th century, there was a lot of pollution in the river where such facilities were shut down. So river was actually unbearable in terms of the smell and the quality, and nobody actually used it. So at one point, somebody has to intervene. So this is an engineer who worked comprehensively on the Victoria embankment, which we use it now. And these are early drawings and photographs you can see. Purpose of showing this is to say, of course, we are not supposed to copy it, but the idea is to see how urbanized area can well be integrated with the river, and how can we make the river clean also. So these are the early examples. Of course, now many cities in the world has done some interventions in multiple ways. Reminded, this is all thought and ideas 25, almost 30 years now in this project. So all of this started 30 years ago for us and Ahmedabad. So at that time, we didn't have any precedent, and even India was not that ready for the urban such public spaces. So New York also built, keeping the waterfront and the urbanization coexisting. Singapore used to be a fishing town with the dirty water and river. There is a fastest transformation project or the city you can say in the world, which has turned around. Chengdu also had the slum and the pollution issues, and they've done work on it. So the point is to show this slide is to say that the cities are engineered landscape, and eventually we need to solve using some sort of technology or some sort of intervention to make it part of the city also, and save the river also. So then the Sabarmati Riverfront Development Project came in the picture. Just to give you a bit of water and the regional context to understand, this is Gujarat. That's the Sabarmati River, around 240 kilometers long, originates from Aravalli Hill in Rajasthan. And Ahmedabad is towards more of a Gulf of Cambay, relatively, and the Sabarmati River. And this is the catchment for Ahmedabad. You can say anything, any rain comes in this catchment area flows through Ahmedabad. So uncontrolled water comes. So this is a flood actual picture from 1973, one of the highest flood in the river. And it devastated the city at that point where the water was in the city technically. So at one point, like many irrigation schemes in the country, irrigation department built many dams to control the water and also store the water for the future use. And still beyond that, because the dam releases the water when there is a threat to the dam, and they release in few hours and the water still comes in the river. So this is the while the project was in making, we had the flood in 2006, where you can see the gravity of the situation. And you can also see, because it was construction happening in the river space, and the equipments and everything is also part of the river, you can see in this picture. Additionally, city, the municipal corporation here in Ahmedabad also built the barrage to keep the water. This is all part of the larger irrigation scheme, which happened many years ago, before even the riverfront was part of somebody's thought. So there is a barrage, and barrage keeps the water in the river, and it stores the river and diverts the water for the irrigation downstream. Otherwise, this water will just flow in the sea, and there is no. And this is a relatively drier region where water is important for the irrigation and drinking. So this was one of the scheme at that time. Here also, there is no discussion on the waterfront yet. You can see urbanized areas, private age, and the slums, and many of the infrastructure works already there in terms of bridges. One of the pictures from 1980, where you can see river and the city's context. And most of the time, the river is dry, puddle of water, and it's primarily used for grazing and kids to play cricket. Similar time, the Narmada Dam came and the irrigation canal was passed. So this is again a larger water scheme, which was pre-existing before any thought for in the city. And that happened to pass by north of the river, north of the city at that time. Now city has outgrew definitely. And so this canal is sprayed from Madhya Pradesh to Rajasthan and Gujarat, primarily to supply the drinking water and irrigation water. And wherever there is a river crossing, they have to safeguard the Narmada Canal, they have an exit plan. So then from that Narmada Canal, the river comes in the river, the water comes in the river, and then also eventually go to the irrigation canal. You can see in the text called Fatehbadi Canal, that's for the southern part of Ahmedabad. Now where the Narmada Canal cannot reach, but bypassing the water is a mean. So that is all irrigation grant scheme where water is connected from various rivers to the drier areas for the irrigation. So eventually, because of the barrage at the southern part of the city and the Narmada water feeding from the north, it has actually become a lake, you can say. Not a flowing river, but it's a lake. Ahmedabad has many small and large.
Neha, can you please mute yourself? I'm so sorry, Niki. Yeah.
Nancy, you have to instruct, I think, everybody just to mute themselves.
Yes, request everyone to please keep their mic on mute. I think it was only once. Sorry, please continue.
That's okay. Neha, I know. Hi.
Yes.
So lakes, definitely some of the important ones like Kankriya and Chandoda, and now the river itself is a lake. So as a technicality, when you talk about the water, this is not a flowing river anymore. It was a dry river most of the time, seasonal river, but now it has a water because of the Narmada. These are all preconditions before the project started. So, and it's not only what you see just now as Ahmedabad Riverfront, but there were many attempts in the past where people have thought about it, how to intervene and improve the waterfront, you can say. So this is in 60s by a French, an architect, Bernard Cohn, who was in India, visiting India and did some sketch proposal, and also given to the CM at that time to talk about that we need to do something. Now, of course, the city was very small at that time. The economy was not really flourishing. We are a very big, new, independent country. So nothing much happened beyond. Even many group of architects subsequently in late 70s worked to talk about river and address these aspects of the urbanized areas that we need to do something for the river. So many proposals were done at that time, but nothing happened subsequently because infrastructure upgradation or infrastructure development or such public front development was not really our need at that time because of the economy. But late come to the 1997, where it was like determined now that that city is growing and we need to do something about the river. So a separate company was formed to manage the project. And so there is a SRFDCL corporation got formed, and EPC was in planning, non-profit collaborative organization was assigned, which is our sister company, and then to do the initial feasibility report to just check what can be done. So first time for any such scale, a comprehensive report and study were done for a year. And you can see many subjects were studied and documented to come up with the proposal. So it talks about water recharge, infrastructure services, resettlement and rehabilitation, cost and finances, of course. All previous proposals, when you talk about the ideas are one aspect, but if you don't have the idea about the cost and the revenue, none of these projects will realize in real life. So that happens, and of course, a lot of management needs to be done. It's a different world at that time, 30 years ago, 25 years ago. Now we are seeing many such projects, so we are okay to accept. At that time, it was very difficult to convince anybody that this is important for the future. So a broader objective: environmental improvement, social development, and urban rejuvenation project. There are 11 objectives. I'll go one by one. I might be behind time, Mansi, but let's see how much we can
No
cover.
issues. Please continue. Yeah.
So one primary objective was that, as you can see the picture I showed you, it was a private age most of the time, and the city at the time around, it was 50 million, I guess, 25 years ago. Now it's 80. For 50 million, we didn't have this natural resource. Ahmedabad is a flat terrain. We don't have any hills, mountains, large lakes or river where we can actually go to. We had the river, but it was not really accessible. So primary objective was to make it accessible. So from this to this. Now only way to do it, because we didn't have the land, everything was privatized. So we have to kind of go in the river to reclaim the land and to build the public asset. So these are a series of maps. You can see this is the river, and then new land formed around 2 square kilometers where we had done a lot of public and the development. And these are technical. So of course, this is all needed to go through the technical scrutiny. None of this project happened without any technical backup and a lot of studies. So it has gone through Kavan needs to go for 10 minutes, but just come back. Meanwhile, I'll finish it.
No problem.
So beyond that, and then from existing river to the proposed river, where the flow of the river is unobstructed, it can continue during the normal season and the flood season, monsoon season. But beyond that, you have a lot of land generated to make it better used. So quickly, some technicality, but this is how the lay of land was with the water level, riverbed, and the high flood level. Now, high flood level is the determined line where we have to respect that. So initial construction pictures, you can see so new land formation from the sand from the riverbed and a platform. This is a sandy river, so it needed a strong foundation, otherwise it will wash off. So these are early pictures of the construction you can see, and it needed an anchor in the ground. So that is what the diaphragm wall is meant for. And this is 2007. You can see a part of the edge is built, and beyond that, the high wall is built with the flood level. Keep in mind, in this case, it's a concrete wall. And concrete wall is not consistent in terms of height. If you see the typical, this is a long cross section, you can say, where the ground is sloping, but because of the barrage, the water is stable, I mean 0, but when the flood comes, it comes following the terrain. So it goes in following the terrain in the slope. So the retaining wall has a different height. Upstream you have a taller height, and the downstream you have a smaller height. So when you experience the waterfront by walking, you will see a different scale and the size also. And then this is the construction picture early, and of course it had all the access points and at frequent locations and ramps. And beyond that, you have a land which is generated, which is also reclaimed, and that is where all the new facilities will come as a part of the waterfront. And so, if you see this is a 1949 satellite image or imagery, you can see the flow of the river at that time, and 2001, and how it has gone about. And this is 2020. Of course, beyond that also we have new updates. And that is what it looks like. So if you remember the old picture where all the private age, now it has a 100% public age where everybody can go freely up to the water and also access with all of other facilities. So that's the objective checked. And of course, when people gather, it looks very lively and it's not just infrastructure. It has become a place now. Another primary important, if after doing all of that, if the river is not clean and if something is not done for that, then nobody would still go because it's going to stink. And that's the quality of the riverbed or the river used to be, and outfalls at various locations. And that's the quality of water. You can see people throw coins and people find coins. So that's the situation in our country. And you can, there are 34 such odd places where the sewerage used to come from the city. There was no dedicated infrastructure for at that time. So, and there was no land for infrastructure also. So as a part of the project, we had to build the large scale infrastructure to curb the water coming and eventually divert into a treatment plants. So all the sewage which used to flow directly in the river now diverted into the treatment plants, which are also safely encased in the land which is generated, so that you don't need to kind of make it very expensive. And that's few snippets of how the construction, this is in 2005, 2006, roughly 20 years ago now. And after that, of course, the river became cleaner. And then beyond that, also there are constant effort to keep cleaning the river at multiple points. And quality will keep improving as we go along. There is also a constant cleaning happens on a daily basis in the river, which is a superficial thing we as a people throw in the river because we are still not civilized enough to not to pollute our natural resources. So all of that is still there, but so there are machines who can clean those also. So there is a constant effort to keep it clean. The benefit of having a water in the river is that it can recharge the groundwater. So having that much water throughout, these are some numbers, but basically it talks about that the amount of water it can store, and that same water is going to seepage in the ground, and it's going to benefit the aquifer and it's going to increase the groundwater table also. Now, this is not because of the riverfront project, it is part of the riverfront, the larger irrigation system. So it was a byproduct, you can say, that was bound to happen. And there are informal studies done by the company. They can see that groundwater has improved in the surrounding area. Because this is a relatively stagnant water, of course, there is a seepage and evaporation, and the water will be needed. Not to rely on currently it is from the Narmada for many years because it was part of the irrigation system, but the efforts are that the treated water from the sewerage is also being put in, and that's now in practice. So more and more there are newer plants built, treatment plants which will, so there is a constant treated water flowing in the river also, so less relying on the Narmada water. So there is a kind of loop now effort to close where the city's polluted water earlier going directly in the river, but now it's diverted to a treatment plant, getting treated and putting back in the river, so that water is always there throughout. So, and you can see, of course, it's been widely talked about also in the media. Another big challenge was when we build infrastructure projects or such urban scale project, there are many stakeholders, and if we don't take them also as a part of the project or part of the problem solution, then some of the projects never happens. So this was a challenge for the city at that time for municipal corporation, where 11,000 families used to live, so around 50,000 people used to live on the riverbed, with the poor condition, without any infrastructure, and always a threat from the flood. So every year when the flood comes, their houses gets damaged and they have to rebuild the houses. And so that was the situation with the not having any proper water supply and drainage. And you can see on the map, all the yellow color marked are all the areas where they were housed at that time. Of course, if you want to build this, they need a solution to do about. So there was a detailed socio-economic survey was done, house to house, door to door. It's like a population, our census, and everything was recorded. And this was managed by corporation and the social activists. And everything is documented eventually. And eventually the city had a lot of land in the city. The corporation had a lot of land in the city as a public land. And all that land within the neighborhood of existing urban area where houses were built. Also, the entire process was managed and chaired by the High Court. These are allotment for the housing, one of the day. And those are the housing units when it got built. One of the first one you can see. And of course, this is empty, so it looks relatively cleaner, prevents people started using it. These are the housing units from that unsafe, no facility to the at least basic one-room kitchen where families can live safely with the proper civil construction. And that's the community space outside. That's the normal neighborhood, the streets within the campus, and that's what it looks as the time goes by. Because of the sandy strata of the river, there was always a erosion to the land. In the lay of land overall. And there are a lot of low-lying areas also, neighborhoods where the constant flood used to happen and erosion used to happen. That's the amount of flood you can see, and nobody can stop this. Whoever had the capacity individually, so you can see individual apartments has individual retaining walls or some safeguarding against the flood to protect their properties. And so that is done, but not uniform or not in a consistent manner. So it can also be a threat during the flood due to the impact. Even important buildings like this is the Mill Owners Association building designed by Lee Corbusier also had to build the retaining wall, some sort of wall to safeguard the building. Even Gandhi Ashram had to build something to safeguard the Gandhi Ashram. So these are all independent. The rest of the area is not protected. So the idea is to have not to have this kind of checkered construction, but to have some sort of public safeguarding element, which is now embankment. You can say this is during the flood. You can see Lower Promenade where the walkway is actually flooded, and after a few days it's cleaned and open again. So this actually protects the city from the immediate flood or the frequent flood you can see. And that's the both side of the city, which is now relatively safeguarded. Then solving all these problems, then now this land is available, and we have to first thing we have to talk about what people can use. So there we will build promenades and parks, and it's an opportunity. It's a highly urbanized area, a relatively very low green space per person, and we don't have kind of known parks. We have only hardly 2 or 3 parks which were known at that time, which are relatively small size, which is always jam-packed and crowded. Beyond that, we don't have anything in the city. And the land, 2 square kilometers, gave an opportunity to maximize the use of this land to put the parks and gardens. So 55% around was kept reserved for that at various locations, looking at the context and the type of the park or the space needed. We also needed to make sure that we communicate well, because while the construction is happening, we have a lot of talk happening, and it's one of its kind, and everybody will tell, okay, why concrete, why there is no, everything is commercialized. So we have to say, we are making parks, we are going to build this. So this place is going to convert like this at one point as the time goes. It's meant for people. even while we are making this, of course, this is going to be lively at one point where people are started using it, good trees will grow, and the Gandhi Ashram again with the additional waterfront will look like this with the access from the Gandhi Ashram. So these are all early visualizations to showcase that what it's going to look like an Indian public space. Nothing flashy, nothing European or American that way, just to say this is what it's going to may look like with our people. There were many, I would say, unbuilt proposal to have large-scale sports ground. Lots of kids from the different strata neighborhood comes as just to play cricket, and we don't have that actually enough. So maybe part of the riverfront we could do this. This is yet to be built. So of course these are visualization imagined 15, 20 years ago, but now it's getting built. So people have started using it. And you can see the crowd along the water, and now water is actually part of the daily life. Promenades are part of their daily lives. They come daily, morning, evening, weekends, all of them with friends and families. And it is something which is now obvious, you can say. So some pictures, what it looks like, the life around waterfront. Exercises, kids, families. Even the Ahmedabad never imagined to have something with the water, so boating also, with more of a recreational. And of course, all the religious activity which used to happen before are all integrated with the proper facilities. So during the crowded situations, also they are safer. So this is one of the important religious functions happen in June, July, and the facilities for that. So people have proper access. And yeah, kids and the youngsters also go for studies. And that's what it looks like now, recently. You can see trees are growing, landscape is growing, and people are using it. Parks also, of course, we have a lot of parks. So this is the original picture with the reclaimed land. Now you can see additional park and the access. And many large-scale parks and facilities were also built along the many years. These are all now accessible and everybody, and of course, these are a couple of old pictures. Now the trees and the landscape has matured and always feel like that it was always there. And there are parks designed for special functions also. This is for the flower, to showcase the flowers and the flora fauna. There are event grounds also to house many public events. Children park dedicated for the small kids. And also the forest. So it's not only the accessible urbanized public parks, but also a portion of that is forested with Miyawaki and many solutions. And this has grown over a couple of kilometers are also due to this. So the riverfront development will add, or has added now actually, a 1 million square meter of parks, promenades and plazas, which is way beyond more compared to the what was already existing in the beginning. Then of course, beyond that, this is a place for people, and it will attract many social amenities. So this was the hub of it because it has already existing public amenities like Sanskar Kendra and Tagore Hall. It was also a public functions. So part of that, there was a market scheme, you can see, and that's more or less realized. Part of the proposal being done in the future. You can see the event space and the pedestrian bridge is already built, which was an early visualization some 15 years ago. And very, very important two aspects of the project, like slums or the housing part. This is the market, and it was an important public place where people used to go and shop on every Sunday. It's a day market. It was happening at one corner on the river, and it was always, of course, during the flood, it doesn't function. But it was not really accessible and safe to go. But as a part of the project, now we have kind of kilometer-long organized market, just access from the same route. So then people have the same memory to go. And the comprehensive plan to have organized parking, public amenities and everything. So then they don't crowd the city streets, which used to happen. And now they're systematically done as a part of the project along the fourth wall. And you can see organized vending and the trees and the walkways away from the traffic. The same kind of market continues. Lots of washing facility used to happen. This was the state at one point. A lot of chemical were used. Now it goes in the river. But now there is a dedicated campus to do this, modernize the facility, and all 160, 70 of them were housed with this facility. Also, the use of land was judiciary next to the water treatment plants. All the dirty water goes directly in the treatment, and the terrace were used to dry the clothes. And that's the campus where families are there, kids are there. So all of them then spend whole day here. And this is actually a business for them. So socially all integrated in one project. Sports centers, city needed sports facilities. Now it's more evident. This was done 5 years ago. And now it's more evident due to the future events going to happen in the city, and large grounds for the temporary events. Projects like this are not independent in terms of its impact. So when you do some sort of intervention in something in an area like this, it's going to impact the surrounding for multi-purpose aspect. So at one point, to make sure that they also are planned well, so part of the project was to think about how these different districts or the precinct, we call it, will look like, and how can we improve those precincts also. Was a nudge to the city that we should do it better. So then the city and the water is integrated well, and not just a strip of development. And of course, an example is urbanized area, because it's the center of the city, central business district. And how do we integrate them from the real estate perspective was one of the aspects also visualized. So the skyline of the city as the city progresses in the future. This is a small portion of the city, not the entire waterfront that will be like this. This land, additional land also gives the street network. A lot of traffic. This is the street network in the past, where we used to use north-south traffic in a very rudimentary manner, and crowded places, always traffic jams, and a couple of bridges to cross. This project gave an opportunity to add few streets, which can ease off the traffic for the city. And that's what it looks like now. And now traffic is, and the connectivity and the mobility is distributed. Of course, currently it is, there are cars, but there are pedestrian walkways also. Eventually, this is going to be converted into a long run, some sort of public transport, where imagine a tram going up and down the length and not the cars. But these are all projects for generations. And once you build the foundation, it will keep growing, keep changing based on the time. And that's what it looks like. Imagine the picture, remember the picture I showed you during the flood? It's the same spot now built with public amenities. One of the primary aspects of success, I would say the success of realizing this project, that there was a idea that the riverfront will pay for them itself, and it won't borrow the money. It will borrow the money temporarily, but it will pay off in the long run. And a small portion of the land was in the very first master plan. You can see this is 1998 master plan was reserved, 80% for the public purpose, 20% for the commercial development to offset the cost. But as the time goes and the real estate values changed, that 20% reduced to 14% now. So now 86% is meant for the public amenities, and only the critical areas are kept for the reserve for the future development, where we can earn the revenue and offset the cost which will incur. So that the cost is not burden to the city primarily. So that's, you can see how we have worked. This is our office where we build models to convince our client. This is a picture I've taken 15 years ago at one point. And this shows the bit of visualization, how it's going to come. These are also, from the planning and urban design perspective, there are improvements happening here also, but that's not the topic just now. But the experience of the building and the surrounding place will definitely be different than the regular city which we have. That's some numbers showing cost versus revenue, but that's okay. This was the idea in this thing where the country is growing, so early attempt. So this particular project brought a lot of people together as a large civil project. It was a byproduct. You can see how people actually work together, from politicians to the stakeholders to activists, to many people. And also it shows the capacity to tackle complex urban problems systematically, consistently, doing it for the last 25 years. And that spirited democracy can also be work to produce a quality public place. And you can see early attempt. These are all initial pictures. You can see the crowd, I mean the audiences, all the citizens, politicians who is speaking, Bimal, who is also early young at that time, worked very closely to explain and how this is going to go. So many public consultation workshops. You can see first picture is Bernard Kwan also were invited again to think about. So it was all talked about in the professional realm also. So yeah, many events. This shows the progress, the beginning of the work, a lot of technical cross-checking as the progresses. So you can see in this picture a politician, an engineer, a project manager, and a city engineer in one frame to worry about how this is going to go. Lots of third-party verification, all of them happen. This is one of the projects which is much talked about, positively and negatively, and there are always counter opinions, and all of them were tested. A lot of public exhibitions were put to make sure that transparency is maintained to showcase the project. Lots of people have seen it in public forum. I'll skip all of this because this is all there in the public domain and can be accessed also. A lot of complaints and the contrasting the opinion. One article says that it's going to wipe out the historic Gujarati market, and then it says that we're going to get new address. So there are always people are going to talk in different manner, but all of them are addressed, responded, documented well enough to make sure that they are addressed. Now we talk about public space often. At that time, it was very difficult to communicate to the people.
So maybe, Niki, shall we open the floor now? Or
No, just a second. I have a 7 minutes. Kavan has to speak also.
okay,
I'm going
sure.
to speak this now. One of the point I want to make, there's any effort like this, if you want to do something in any form, doesn't matter this particular type of urbanized solution. We're doing very contrasting project in Pune or other cities where the approach and the solutions are different based on the context. But there are aspects which we cannot oversight, and everything has to be coexisting. So it cannot be only about water, or it cannot be only about the landscape, or it cannot be independently about making a commercial development. So it has to work together, depends on the context and the needed, and all of them has to be done comprehensively or not unilaterally. So if something is to be improved, we cannot just think one-sided. This is a multi-generational project. Of course, the success of a first project you can see is going to bring. So this was only at 11 kilometers in Ahmedabad, but now river comes from the north. It has a Gandhinagar. It has a new city called Gift and many urbanized areas around. So not only 11 kilometers, but all the way till Gandhinagar is being thought. We are fortunate to work continuously for another 10 kilometers beyond the city, north of the same river. And I would like Kavan to speak on that very briefly, to talk about what changes and improvements we've done and how that riverfront is going to look different than the phase one. Kavan?
Thank you. Maybe keep it as very crisp, because we have to take questions from people.
Absolutely. So,
yes, go ahead.
like you saw in this map, the red represents the phase one, which is about 11 kilometers. And then we have an extension, which is about another 10 kilometers, which is the phase two and the subsequent phase three. If we see the embankments, this is how the phase one was designed. largely because there was a land constraint next to it. And then we also had to plan the road network. So embankment was only restricted to 10 meters. If you see phase 2, it has a lavish embankment of about 30 meters wide, which does have a lower promenade as well as a middle promenade. I'll come to that. It is much more greener as well. And subsequently, the phase 3, it is also modeled on the same design principles of phase 2, because all of them are in the peripheral stage of urban expansion, and not necessarily the city has restricted those ages. Yeah. There's a sliver of riverfront, about 1.5 kilometers in between, which we had managed to envision as a stepped embankment. And we have continued this design philosophy later in the phase 2 as well. So this is, even though we had a constricted space, this is how there was a terraced garden plan, and this is a pilot stretch of phase 2, which we have built on in the phase 2. So cities are not, they cannot have a standardized approach when it comes to riverfronts. It is a very context-specific design. And one of the main reasons why we were able to pivot our design philosophy from phase 1 to phase 2 was that the age is heavily urbanized. Whereas if you see the phase 2, there's a lot of land and a buffer area where actually the embankment and the streets can expand and eat into. So this is the river in its natural stage. This is the river land that was marked into the development plan. And finally, when we channelize it, there is close to about 1.5 square kilometer of land that we are getting. And this is the cross section. So if you see the first part, that is it's in its natural condition, whereas the second part does have those stepped embankments into play. We also did a lot of iterative design exercises to find out which would be the base suited kind of embankment that would go into this age condition. So this is the carrying out of the phase 1 when it does get implemented. How could it that sit into this context? We also tested out sloping embankments. But what we found out was this is right next to the river. So if we can have usable green spaces next to the river edge, it might well be an attraction for people where people can gather into. So this became our design philosophy, and this was the first iteration that we made. Subsequently, we decided why not just decrease the number of planters and increase the number of green linear parks. So planters are where dedicated green spaces are there. And middle promenade is a complete linear park now. Now here what happens is there's a 100-year flood line which we have to respect. This is a technical aspect, but we had to respect it because then the flood would enter the city. One improvement that we have done in this phase is largely because of a political decision that was been taken. Is the flood can then, when a 100-year return flood happens once in a blue moon, it can flood the river road, the river street that runs right next to it, but still the city can be protected by having a last wall. So by doing this, we have the last wall that you see, we have managed to cut that down into half now. So the city is still protected by the flood, but there's no disconnect happening between the riverfront, the embankment, and the city itself. And people can also enjoy the river from the upper promenade and the street. So these are some of the isometric views. This is how the terrace garden would come up with smaller accesses in between as activity nodes. The middle promenade, if you see, has been visualized to have activity pockets in between, have curated landscapes like this, forested areas like this with a lot of lush greenery. And also where your Olympic complex is coming or where the plazas are there, we can have activities of different sorts. There can be tot lots, there can be sport areas, there can be water interaction places or pavilions of different sorts like this. So keeping the embankment still active, but at the same time, a very, very green age because we have the land for it. And all of this doesn't have dedicated storm water. It is just designed as a sponge park, so water can percolate it right down to the embankment. We can also have sports areas and game zones and different sort of activities, fitness areas, so people can actually come to the riverfront and enjoy this. Kiosks and eateries, plazas become a hub, kind of a local hub for people to gather into. We can also have eateries inside them, protected from the river edge. We have different types of plazas coming into picture. It's not one design that is repeated everywhere, but we have iterations of similar modules that come into play, and then different outcomes are happening depending on what context this accessibility offers. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I won't take more than 5 minutes if that's okay.
Sure, please, because we have to really take questions from people, and
Right.
Parth is still there.
So
Yeah?
I'm largely done with it. So these
Okay.
are the on-site photos of the execution work now. The red concrete that you see is now the access points that are coming into picture. The half of the embankment is already constructed now.
Wow, this is Gandhinagar stretch, right?
Towards Gandhinagar.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
still in Ahmedabad. Still in Ahmedabad.
Up to Indira Bridge.
Yeah. Still in Ahmedabad.
Now, phase 2 is still being developed, but the one photograph that I showed you of the middle promenade of the pilot stretch, I want to kind of show you a detailed analysis. I mean, this is how we had visualized. This was during just fresh after construction. This was after 6 months, and this was after 5 years, how we had imagined it. We are very happy and proud to tell you that this is how on-site progress of the landscape is also happening. So this is fresh during construction. This was just after 8 to 10 months when greening was done. This was after 14 months. So you see a lot of flourishing landscape. This was the lower promenade. The middle promenade has underwent a similar timeline and progression. This is during construction after 5 to 6 months. And this is after 10 months. And this was during the last monsoon, not this monsoon, the last monsoon. And this is how it is much more greener and grown now. It is open to the public near Dafnala, so people can visit this as well. And this is the pilot stretch now. So phase 2 is much more wider, will be much more greener and have much more activities than this. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kavan, and Niki for this extensive overview, and also giving us a sneak into the future of the riverfront coming. May I request to close the presentation? Thank you so much. And now I will invite our young discussant, Parth Patel, who will also ask some questions, and then we will take some questions from our participants here. Thanks all the participants for patiently waiting, and also Parth. Parth is a creative technologist with a master in fine arts in design and technology from Parsons School of Design, New York. He works at the intersection of nature and technology, creating intersections with using machines for physical science. He searches for physicality in his work and how such systems behave, respond, and evolve with their surroundings, drawing inspiration from theoretical physics, mathematics, and natural phenomena. The reason to invite Parth is also that he did his undergraduate bachelor's thesis with me on this riverfront itself, and he had some interesting questions. The thesis became a distinction thesis, and I thought, what a good idea to have a young discussant to ask questions. This has been the format of Wednesdays for Water, where we invite a young person to interact with mature and seasoned experts. Parth, thank you so much for agreeing, and welcome back to W4W. Over to you, and you may ask your questions, and then we'll take questions from the participants. Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Mansi, for the introduction. Thanks, Niki and Kavan, for the presentation. Sort of gives you a little more insight, specifically after doing a thesis. There are a little more nuances that I just got to know about. It's sort of hard to find out. It's from an office perspective. You guys have more access to it. So I'll just keep it short. I had a lot of questions back then when I did my thesis, and I still have the same thing around. And it's to ask that it's been nearly 2 decades since the riverfront has sort of came in access to, like, available to the access to other people. And what I want to know is that I do remember that you sort of answered this question already in your presentation, saying that how the officers learn from phase one and then like how it sort of progresses towards. But if I have to just look at it from not even from a design perspective, just from like a fair bit of glance, it still looks this. I precisely want to know what are those learnings, because if you compare the phase two to the phase one, apart from that like sort of one different addition to, let's say, a different version of how the levels could be played out, it still looks pretty much same to me. Just to sort of probably I am not able to sort of get the technicality of it. And I just want to know like what exactly differs from saying that, okay, we did this thing and it was the first time, so people would have questions, but now when you do it for the second time, that sort of you have more open access to, okay, what are the opinions about? And it's not only about your own learnings, but that people throw their own learnings as well. So there are more ecologists, there are more people who are from, let's say, reverse perspective. There are people from design perspective. There are people from architecture perspective. Like there are all lot of these perspectives that you guys have on the table. How do you then sort of compile this information and then sort of reflect towards it, and then it becomes the phase two?
Yeah. So it is this phase one, phase two are the nomenclature we use it. That's why we say it. But let's say this is a continuous effort. So it's going to continue. It was planned already many years ago to continue, but now we are breaking it up into more doable projects because everything is involved in it, logistics. But when I say that we have learned our lessons, yes, we have learned our lessons as the time goes. Our practice has matured. So, but it's not only our lessons, because the first time when we did it, it was, first of all, there is a context of that. There is a water, there is a lay of land, there is a soil, and there is a flood, and there is a lot of urbanized technicalities of that. That remains same, let's say, in this particular river. Because flood is same, soil condition is same. So there are structural aspects of to protect something will be same. So we have to continue that. When it happened first time, nobody knew how it's going to go. So everybody safeguard themselves in the decision-making aspects, not only the consultants. Even we have, if I want to do a landscape embankment, or I want to do a sloping embankment, or if I want to do something else, still somebody else has to agree. It's not only my call as a practice. So we had lots of integrated aspects and the time and many other pressure. So that happened. What has happened in that 2 decades where everybody has become a little relaxed relatively, because now we have an experience of doing something. As Kavan mentioned, one of the primary objective was not to build those high walls. Yeah, stepping is a design solution. That's something still bring a lot of landscape and the tree and the forest and everything. So that's something we wanted to do. There were landscape people who now works. Earlier there were none. Overall embankment highs had reduced. So because not to worry about the flood was primary, and it's a big thing. And the decision like that can take years to take. So those are the kind of bigger decisions we have taken. This is an embankment is a one element, a very tiny element in the larger scheme of events. So one minor change will bring a lot of difference compared to both the aspects. Beyond that, whatever land it has a contextual master plan. It has no commercial development and other aspects which people have already enough talked about that you are going to make this riverfront commercialized. That's not happening. It's all going to be meant for the public purpose. So there are incremental changes. There are no drastic changes. If that is something, if you can relate to, because still city is still the same. The problem of the city is still the same. We still have the similar pollution aspects in the northern part. We still had the issue with the connectivity. We still have the problem with how the space is going to be utilized. Yes, there were attempts to change the material, not to use the concrete. A lot of things happened, but of course, there are always pros and cons and give and take. So that's what happened primarily. There were complaints, or you can say that people see that when you access the river, you walk towards the river and not sideways. No, there are very nuances, again, I'm saying, people's perspective, where even my family member would say, why the river are accessed in this fashion and not this fashion? That's something we have taken also in account, because we had space and we had possibilities to design them where it's a natural flow of access to river were considered. So there are many incremental and nuances which we have improvised in the larger project, in the future subsequent ones. But as a practice, I would say this is because it's still one city we are talking about. If I show you a contrasting city, some other area, then the whole approach is different because it demands that approach and not this particular approach. So there is no way of saying it, okay, this is the solution. It's pre-given. It is thought when we work on. So either you pick up any city in the future, let's say Pune or Nagpur or any smaller river in any of the second, third tier city, we have to really go and see what's going to look like. And then you find a solution. The solutions are not predetermined. There are 1,000 solutions possible. But then what works is something we have to work on, is the whole idea in this case. So it's incremental. You can't say it's a drastic change, but it's incremental. Whatever we could improvise as we go along. As a practice, we have learned a lot of things. Of course, we can't put everything in one project. So there are many examples as a practice. But our way of saying is it's not practice-oriented, practice perspective. It's as a project, city perspective, the improvements happen. That's my answer to it just now. Me and Parth can have a longer discussions later if you want.
Yes, that's the whole idea in Wednesdays for Water. Our youth have really benefited from these sessions because they get to network and learn more. Parth? There are some interesting questions in the chat box also. Yes, Niki? Yeah.
I just want to also add to it that we also learn from seeing something somewhere else, and we contextualize and we improve on. Our learning is always like that. Our research is always like that in any profession. So when anybody young sees this, also need to understand that this is done at one point.
Yes.
But that's not the answer. So your learning should be your own opinion based on your context you're coming in, and then say this is right, this is good, but this can be improved. So, but it's not people have done. There are not young, but the cities have copied these solutions. As you know, Sabarmati Riverfront is famous, so they just copied this model and put it somewhere else. That's not the right approach. So you have to have your own opinion. This is something we've done it, and it's done, finished. There is no way we can go back. But we also understand as a people, as an individual, as an expert, there are things we can improve. So young people have to see that they see on both the aspect, both the lenses. I mentioned good and not so good aspect. So you don't learn the wrong thing also while you study.
Yes.
Okay. Before I will take a few questions if Mansi allows from the chat. But
yes, but
what you
both
just
are very quick questions and quick responses now because the session is very interesting and I'm holding my emotions and questions. Go ahead, Parth.
So I just have like one follow-up question to that because there was a discussion about how young people perceive things, and I would just like to say this thing is already being done. It's under the public impression and sort of it is there. So the only reason that sort of the question emerges is from 2 to 3 points. One is that the project is at a huge scale. Okay, so project is at an 11-kilometer stretch. So no matter how much we try to accept the fact that this has been done and that there are a lot of learnings that are being taken away from it, and now when we improve it for the next time, it's going to become better. The understanding or the prompting of the question comes from the fact that there's a little bit of difficulty in doing the undoing of the project. It's like because it was done at such a scale, and it specifically triggers a discussion because it has a subject that sort of is landscape. So like even if I don't practice landscape, the first of the perception that comes with the idea of working with nature is that how temporal it is. And I'm not saying it only happens or it has its own restriction because you do it at scale. Even if you work at like quantum scale, you don't get the leeway to say this thing that, oh, you have to understand because you need to make something and this is how it's being made and that's how you do it. There are always difficulties in doing it, but because it's been done with landscape, you always have this triggering thoughts inside your head that, okay, what if this goes south? Within building, it's totally understandable. You can sort of bring it down if something goes wrong. Landscape is such a fragile entity that if anything sort of not done on an experimental basis or sort of allowed for it to do changes here and there, if done at a stage which is permanent, it sort of becomes hard to undo it. And when it becomes hard to undo it, it's hard to digest the fact that, oh, this is how it's going to turn out. So my question from that, okay, why and what were the learnings, was precisely the reason to ask it, because it's such a huge project and it became like a role, as you said, that it becomes a role model for other people or for other cities to look up to. So like the pressure probably not intended by the office, but it sort of it naturally comes down to you. Is that okay? Because so many people are looking towards us. And then it sort of opens you up for the public discussion. So like that was the whole idea when I asked the question that, okay, it's more important to understand like how it's going to unfold from the office's perspective, because even though you are doing it for the project, like if the questions are directed towards the project, but the project is coming from the office. So like the stakeholders or the decision makers are the office. So we have to sort of direct, or I had to direct the question towards that.
Yeah, so let me answer again. When I say that young people or anybody, I mean, not only young, whoever wants to study such interventions should look at the core of it. See, design solutions are very subjective. Now, if you professionally, if you talk about it, there'll be subjective aspects of that, and subjective aspects also will have a lot of technicalities. So I'll keep that aside. So there is a problem and there is a solution, right? There's a problem and the solution. Every city, as Kavan mentioned, every city and the context has a certain way of dealing with and looking at it. Some historical town will have temples or ghats or anything. This particular town has a different context. Pune will have a different context. So cities will have a different context. So when I say that we should study and learn from it, but we should learn the fundamentals of it, learn the fundamentals of it and not the obvious answers. Because design, no, it's like walking in London or walking in Paris and say, I want the same streets here. It's not going to work. What we have to understand the fundamentals of that. What is it that we want to, because we have to also worry about our culture, our the social aspects, our economy and everything on it. So we cannot literally translate that aspects of that. So fundamental needs to be addressed and understood. It's not the design which we are looking at it, the solutions were addressed comprehensively is the learning which one should talk about. And of course, as the time goes, more research have done. There are more examples somebody has worked on. So combining all of that, we can, if you want to apply it to somewhere else, you can do it in a different manner, is what one point. Now, when I say, yes, the project is large, doing a project like this take many, many years. So undoing will take time also. So it's not going to, at least, no, it's like this. We have actually built it just now. So let people use it. There's no point to change it, or there's no need to change it. We are doing a smaller incremental changes. So it is like a city. City is built or it's grown, and you do keep doing the incremental changes as the life progresses. So projects like this are not independent campus project where you can tear down a building and build a new one, but it's part of the city. So it's incremental. No, eventually it's going to be incremental. And when it particularly talks about as you address the word used, landscape. Well, this river never had the landscape because city was already urbanized centuries ago. You will not see any landscape like what we see in a many good river. You go to Maharashtra, it's a beautiful river with the landscape around where the flora, fauna and everything is flourishing. The river is dead here because there is no water at one point. The water comes seasonal, and all of the edge of the river is urbanized with the buildings and the walls. There is no landscape. In broader, you can put urban landscape as a term, but landscape, there is no landscape to start with. So it was an engineered solution in a way. Then, of course, added with a lot of landscape, typical landscape as a part of the solution. So there are many angles to this when you start looking at it. So undoing, I'm not saying that do it now. Undoing will take generations. It's a multi-generational project is what we are saying. So today you do it, younger generation from here, 20 years down the line, they can update some portion of it. That's possible. Every city in the world doing so.
Yeah, what is very interesting for me as a water scholar for nearly 30 years is that it's always about land and matters, so landscape. And I'm keeping my toes up to keep talking about waterscape, because here was the case where the water body was seen as a piece of land, very rightfully mentioned by Niki that there was no water. But I mean, by the way, I have written some scientific articles on it, Niki. We will talk about it some other time when we
Yes,
meet
please.
together.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
Parth, do you have any question? Then I take some questions from the participants. But participants, please understand today we will not be left with time to really take all the questions. But I will share all the questions to Niki and Kavan so that if they like to, they can respond with all your details. So
Yes, we will do
that
that.
is always possible. And HCP has been doing that open house. You have an open house. Why don't you announce, Niki, now? So that people can also discuss that. So
We
know
have
that.
not announced ourselves.
No, you
Also,
have
we
not
are
yet?
doing it.
Okay.
I'll do
So
it at the
there
end
is
of the
something
day.
interesting coming.
I'll do it end of the session.
Sure, sure.
Let's just continue with the session
Yeah,
just now.
Parth, please go ahead, Parth. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do get, I mean, I understand the answers. There are still follow-ups to that, but I'm just going to sort of keep it aside for a little and move on to a couple of other questions. One was that I just clarify about the undoing part. What I said that it's not about sort of you break down the project and completely redo it. That's not about what I meant by undoing. I just wanted to get this thought through that when we design it for the next time, like what is the provision of undoing? Like, okay, we learned that, okay, probably undoing might be required, might not be required. So there's a may attached to it. So when we do it for the next time, like what's the provision beforehand to sort of take that into consideration? So that was just sort of clarifying.
City building has inherent flexibility. You can break down anything and build again. So there is no way you can plan, okay, these are flexible areas where you can break down, because today you make it as a flexible, tomorrow the other area needs to be flexible when the generation comes in that time. So these are very technology, engineering, anything we man-made, I mean, built by us can be transformed. So it can be transformed in a multiple way. So I don't see any way, or we cannot predict the future, which part has to be flexible in this case. But yes, despite having said that, anything which we do, I mean, there is a overall simplicity of the solution. We're not making it complex. So it's easy to retrofit anything you want in the future. So for example, I'll just tell you, if you want, I'm not going to touch the water just now, just
Yes.
but I'll just tell you, as I mentioned, currently there is a time in this for a couple of years or decades where the street is needed for the vehicle purpose. And then you will argue why you want to build a road and cutting the city and the river. Yes, that argument is valid. But currently we need a road. But in the future, you can easily remove the road, make the whole space as a public space. Like everywhere in the world, we have street transformed into a pedestrian street. So you can actually do it. Or you can do it for the whole, you can do it for the portion. Depends on the need. So there is a flexibility in that aspect. If the environment permits, because there is a very hot climate, we have a scarcity of water primarily. Even to irrigate the landscape, we have a lot of hard work to even grow the trees. And if the time permits, and this hard age, now the hard age, I'm not worried about the tall wall, but the age between the water and the first wall. And if that can be landscaped in some fashion, there is a possibility of adding it or retrofitting it, I would say, to add on, if there is a possibility, technically also. So these are, I mean, giving you an example, rudimentary example, where you can change it. I'm not saying to break the waterfront and build new, but that's not going to happen. I mean, for many, many years. We have a lot of other things to worry. We have a lot of cities to improve, infrastructure to improve. So doing it one and using it for a couple of years is also important. So there are many range of retrofitting or undoing in that aspect. And everything we do as a professional, I think everybody in India who does something can be changed in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the question Parth wanted to really pose, and maybe I will put it in a different way, as what are the things we may actually not do in future projects. But I have to keep checking time. We have just last 5 minutes to really wrap up things. Let me just say if there is, I see Rohit Bhai is there, Priyanka is there, a lot of known people are around, Neha, and they are all full of questions. But guys, you know Niki very well. You can always discuss this point. I am just seeing if there is someone who are not known to you and who has some question. Maybe that person needs to be more inclusive, because this is also something in Sabarmati as well as in W4W. We try to be more inclusive as possible. So
Yes.
I am actually going to skip all these known people to Niki so that you have other occasions to talk to him. That includes Rohit Bhai, Priyanka, and I'm just checking if there, and let me just check YouTube also if there are some questions or not. So I have a very tricky and humorous question for both of you. Why it is Sabarmati Riverfront, not Ahmedabad Riverfront? Because I mean, my next scientific article is actually coming on the identity grabbing of Sabarmati by Ahmedabad Riverfront.
Yeah.
That one tiny 11 kilometers of stretch has taken away the identity of 371 kilometers of the river. And what does it mean? And that the whole grabbing. So for my one of my scientific article is on land grabbing, how conveniently we grabbed land out of water body because we see it as a landscape. So it's a waterscape, landscape debate that me and you have to get on another platform. Maybe today we have time
Yeah,
constraint.
we are meeting now when you're here. So
Yes, I'm just coming this weekend and then we meet. So today we are also in a very precarious situation. We are managing 3 time zones from Germany, New York, and India, and
Can I
that has
answer the
been also
question?
interesting.
Why
Please,
Sabarmati Riverfront and why not Ahmedabad Riverfront?
please, that will be your last and closing
This is-
comment also.
This is like naming a child.
Yes.
Depends on the era you are in. You name your child. Some people are
Yes.
religious, some people are not. So
Yes.
it depends on or some people are well traveled. So you have a modern name, even if you are 40-year-old, or you still have a different name. So this is a naming game, I would say in that case.
But India is in a naming time right now. Everything is getting named, renamed.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So when even the spelling of the Sabarmati Riverfront company is wrong that way, we have kind of tell them that English is wrong that way. So Sabarmati, because everybody says Sabarmati, Sabarmati, Sabarmati. So it's a Sabarmati. Technically, it has to be for Ahmedabad waterfront. No?
Absolutely.
In a very urban situation or a very touristic situation, you can, Ahmedabad ka waterfront. No? In that terms, we actually had the same talk yesterday also. And one of the
Yes.
comments I said that when we talk about, that's why I've not written the name also of the city of the river, but I've actually put the name of the cities. So it's not Mula Mutha, but it's a Puna. So it's when you say
Yes.
Puna. But having said that, that's come from the urban aspect. But if you want to address the river, if you talk about the rejuvenation aspects, they want to river rejuvenation aspects. So then you have to focus on the river. So I think simple naming can also shift the perspective of what you want to integrate.
Oh, no. It is philosophical discussion. And actually, 10 years ago, I sat through on the amount of money which was put on riverfront of Ahmedabad vis-a-vis the entire river stretch, which is 360 kilometers. The money put in 360 kilometers in 10 years and the money put in Ahmedabad riverfront in 10 years, that was a proposal. It is a philosophical question indeed, and I wrote it to Toyota Foundation, and honestly speaking, it was very well appreciated, because what inclusiveness we are talking about, whose river is this? Who are we displacing? Who are we putting them back? Who are coming there? Who are now excluded? Do watch the film Love at Sabarmati. That's a very well-made film by Conflictorium that will also give you some insights on who are in Sabarmati or Ahmedabad riverfront, who are out. Anyway, this is a hot topic. It is going to stay there. We really wish to have more riverfront discussions. As you all know, Sabarmati riverfront, which I also made a title for today's session, and made, as you saw, Kavan and Niki, that I wrote actually Ahmedabad riverfront and not Sabarmati riverfront. And that is one of the learning path, you can say that one of the learning which has come further, philosophical learning, that other city riverfronts are not called by the river. They are called by the city fronts. I feel that's a very philosophical shift and also a big way or big change, incremental as Niki has used the word, for future riverfronts to learn. And as an educator, all my life, nearly 20 years, I have been teaching most of the time. Most successful courses from me runs on what not to do. Maybe we will run a session here to dedicate it on what not to do on riverfronts. Maybe that will be a time when we can really all sit together, put our heads together to do some check boxes that this should be done, this should not be done. Because rightly put by Niki that it is things which are right today may not be right tomorrow, and day after it will be completely different, and you will have a time. By the way, Parth, let me tell you, in your lifetime, you will see de-development coming. De-development is already knocking around the world. It is there. De-damming has started. Likewise, you also had your case study of Chongchong in Korea. De-development is there, so just stay back and look for it. Over time, every designer, every planner, every politician will have a different vision for city, and that will also bring forth different changes, which is part of growth of city, as rightly put by Niki. And also, as you saw how Kavan was talking about how things are changing in a different setting, which is the north of Ahmedabad. Thank you so much, Kavan and Niki, for this wonderful session. I am sorry to all the participants. We will not be able to take your questions today. But as I promised you, we are going to have a series of riverfront sessions. Let me just quickly announce the next Wednesday, which is our signature series. Again, next Wednesday, we are actually going to talk about Jammu, and we have actually not say it as a Jammu riverfront, but we are calling it as a Tavi riverfront. There again, I took it from the newspapers and all, so we will question the same in that same session. So on December 10th, we have the Rage of the Rivers and Riverfront project in Tavi River in Jammu. Next Friday, we also have very interesting session, which is Friday Water Arts, which is on December 12th at 5 p.m. IST. All our sessions takes place at 5 p.m. IST. We are actually going to have a very interesting discussion. If river could speak, what will it say to the human beings? And I am going to play the river, and we have Srishti Bajpayee, who is going to talk about how humans interact with river. That's a curated session as an artwork. So we look forward to humans talking to rivers on December 12th, and on December 10th, we go to Jammu and look at riverfront. Thank you so much, all of you, for your patience, and thanks a lot, Parth, Kavan, and Niki, for this wonderful session. This session will go down really, really very strong to talk about other riverfronts in the country. Thanks, all of you. Please take care and stay tuned to our sessions. Bye-bye.